All right, folks, Staccato XC. I think you're ready for my review of this pistol. Now, this particular one I ordered a couple months ago. I got it a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago. I've shot about 4,000 rounds through it, maybe a little bit more. I taught a couple of classes with it, and I did the 2,000 round duty ammo test with it. So I'll talk through all that stuff and then give you some conclusions about it. Now, before I get too deep into this, because I know a lot of people are going to get very emotional about this gun. It's the nature of the internet, right? And it's an expensive gun, like a high-profile brand. People are emotional about it. I did have one pretty serious problem with it, and that was the gun it just was not cycling at one point when it was dry. Now, the factory recoil spring that comes with this thing is 7 pounds. The one thing that I really didn't like in shooting the gun was the slow reciprocation of the slide. I felt like I didn't like the feel of it from a shooting perspective. I didn't feel like it'd be reliable. And of course, as soon as my gun was dried out, it just didn't work, especially with this soft Blazer ammo. I switched to an 11-pound spring, and it did change things pretty substantially with the gun. So that's a thing that happened. You can like take it one way or the other, whatever. I'm using an 11-pound recoil spring. That's the only change I made from the factory configuration of this. I should say up front, my expectations with this would be that it would be an open gun. Like I would expect that this would be kind of finicky, maybe run 500 rounds and then need to get cleaned before it would work type of a thing. That's the experience that I was expecting coming into this. So, none of this really shocked me. Okay, so I'll go through the features, feature by feature, and we'll talk through it. First, the trigger. This thing is set to a 2.5-pound trigger. I think this is the default when you order the XC. The trigger is 2.5 pounds. It's not crazy light. Like that number sounds crazy light. It doesn't feel that way. You feel, a take up, a wall, really defined wall, then the trigger breaks. I don't know what you're supposed to do or not supposed to do, but I've done stuff like drop the slide on an empty chamber, dry fire the gun a bunch. I haven't had any issues with the trigger. To me, it feels like it's going to be reliable, and it's nice. So, yeah, the trigger, to me, I'm pretty happy with it. Most of the 1911, the 2011 competition guys get a lighter trigger than this, I think, in the end, but this one feels plenty light to me. One note on the grip safety for the trigger. You can see I don't have to push it in very much to actually actuate it. I have not had a problem turning off the grip safety with this pistol at all, including missing my grip or getting on kind of the wrong spot or whatever. It's always deactivated for me. Now, looking at the grip itself, this is a plastic grip, which in my head, that is the move for a pistol like this, a compensated 9mm pistol. It's not going to be, super heavy recoil. I like the idea of a plastic grip. It makes the gun very friendly to be, during fast handling. Metal tends to rip my hands up a little bit. So I do like the plastic grip. Now, my first impression of this was that there wasn't very much texture on the grip. I was thinking like, hey, I want a little bit more, a little bit something to hang on to. In actually shooting the gun, the way that it's set up from the factory is kind of grown on me. There's not much texture here, but then again, the gun recoils so light, it doesn't need that much. So I find it shootable like this, but I guess if I had to pick, I would want it a little bit more aggressively textured, even though I haven't found it really make a difference. The magwell, this is one part of the gun that's gotten banged up as I've used it. The magwell is nice. It's effective. It's the right size. There's some provided 17-round magazines that are just a little bit more than flush fit in this, so it accommodates those nicely. And the larger 20-round and 26-round magazines, obviously, there's definitely not a problem there. This isn't like a super nuts magwell. Like, they get bigger and crazier than this, but this one is, it's just fine for what it is. I don't really have a complaint with it. It makes the reloading faster and easier. The only other real consideration here is the safety. This is an ambi safety, which is just a conventional size and style. Not really noteworthy. As a matter of fact, that's a good way as you look at this gun, considering that it's a $5,000 like custom, not really, but a custom pistol. You look at it, it's really not that remarkable. It's really not that crazy or aggressive in terms of the styling. I think it looks cool. I think it looks really nice. I like the slide cuts. I like the look of the compensator. The whole it looks good. But it's like a business suit. Like, it's not crazy looking. It's not ostentatious. It's not over the top. For a more custom type of 2011 look, I imagine most people would get a gun that does look a little bit more over the top than this. Now, one other note here is the accuracy of the pistol, which to me has been like top notch. I don't know exactly what it'll group at like 50 yards, but I would be shocked if it's more than like a 3-inch group. It's probably way tighter than that. The gun to me feels extremely accurate, so much so like the bullet hitting right where the red dot is, even at the 50-yard line. There's really no mystery with this thing. It's a very accurate pistol. Okay, what else do we have to talk about here? Oh, the magazines. The magazines, to me, these 20 rounders you buy separately. The 17 rounders are provided. These function very reliably. I've had no issues with the magazines. They all lock the slide back. They're easy to disassemble if you want. You can, get the dirt and whatnot out of there. That hasn't really been necessary in my case. Despite dropping these in sand, I just kind of, bang them off a little bit, and they are good to go. So, man, in the old days, I remember when you have to tune a 9mm 2011 or tune a 40 cal 2011 magazine to get it to run, but not anymore. These do work pretty well right out of the box. All right, so let's talk through the testing. I got the gun, set up my belt, function checked the gun a little bit with some Ranger ammunition, and all was well. Took the gun apart, cleaned it. I think I put it back together a little bit dry, and then as I was shooting it the next day with some Blazer, just on a single target, I remember feeling the slide reciprocating. I was like, ugh, this thing's not running too good today. I don't know if this is going to continue working. Sure enough, the malfunction started. From there, I put in an 11-pound recoil spring. I got the gun wet and tested it some more, 1,000, 1,500 rounds, something like that. And all was well when I would take the gun apart, clean it, and relubricate it, every 500 or so rounds. The gun seemed to be running very, very reliably, like no problems. In doing some, looking at the comments online, the guys on the channel, they're like, hey, the 2011s, you don't need to clean them, just add lube. So I kind of took that to heart, and I was watching the thing work, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I think this pistol's reliable. I think it was undersprung from the factory, and I think I got it really dry, and it just didn't want to work. And I think it will work. So I put in the 11-pound spring, like I said, and did 2,000 rounds of the Ranger duty ammo without cleaning and without relubricating. There was no issues with the pistol. Everything ran just fine. Yeah, I used Rem oil, and everything worked just fine. What that showed me is kind of like, it was kind of what I was thinking. It's like, yeah, this thing fundamentally, I think it's going to run. It just needs to be wet. And depending on how light the recoil spring is, like that's going to determine how wet it kind of needs to be in order to function. But this one has been functioning. Now, there's another thing I should point out which kind of struck me after doing all this. I've got a lot of pistols, obviously. If I take one and I shoot it, I haven't shot it a bunch, a few thousand rounds, a few weeks, but it's been in and out of a holster a bunch. The gun looks great as far as the finish. It looks really nice. It has not started falling apart or anything. Typically, there's going to be some holster wear. Now, there's a little bit of wear on the barrel, like just on that DLC coating. There's some buildup in the comp, and the magwell's banged up. But you'd have to look pretty close to see that this thing had really been shot, which, I don't know, I thought I'd point that out. The gun is holding up pretty well. The coatings are nice and all of that stuff. So there it is, Staccato XC. It is functional. But all right, who is this thing really for? Because I think people get emotional about this, and it really does. It comes down to the money. Both for the gun and against the gun, I think a lot of people have spent substantial money on these, and they want to tell people how good it is, or they want to believe that it's worth it. And then there's other people that look at this and are like, hey, that's stupid. It's too much money. It shouldn't be like that. Whatever. I think both those points of view are pretty valid. To tell you the truth, it's like, if you look at this thing, and you're like, I don't want that. I don't like that. I think that's too much money. I think that's stupid. Whatever. I get it. That totally makes sense to me. And then other people have a different view of it. So let's go through these groups of people. So first, probably the most interesting thing, and I think the group that gives Staccato like that brand power, is the police. Now, Staccato's convinced a lot of people like, hey, these are duty pistols. Even like this one's marketed as a duty pistol. And after shooting it and kind of, I mean, I talked to some people like, hey, is the comp okay for a duty pistol? And the cop bros or duty gun bros that I talked to were saying, like, yeah, I mean, the comp's an advantage for shooting, sure. It could be a problem if, like, the close range, like retention shooting, that type of thing, but you don't really see that much. It's a thing that can happen, but we just don't see it that much. So, okay, so I guess the comp would be okay. The 2.5 pound trigger on this one, you probably wouldn't want. You can get a version of this with a 4.5 pound trigger. And if the recoil spring is heavier than 7 pounds, like, that's like, would this make a duty pistol? Like, I guess you could. Like, with me shooting it or playing with it, if I got one of these and kind of shook it out, shot it 1,000 rounds, made sure it was okay, I guess it could be a duty pistol. I mean, it's a ton of money, but I guess it could be. And like I said, Staccato's has convinced cops to carry these and other models. Probably the P would make sense to a lot of people, but there's apparently cops even carrying these things. Now, another group that this appeals to is the type of people that think a Punisher skull on a gun's a good idea. Like the people that have seen John Wick movies. And this brand, like this type of pistol does have, it has this, I don't know, sort of like the general public is aware of guns like this a little bit, and they get a lot of, I mean, it'll get some interest like that, like, oh, that's supposed to be like such and such. Oh, that's such a cool gun. So for those type of people, like, this is a toy. It's a thing to have. Is it really worth it to buy it? Like, no. I mean, not really. If you've got money to set on fire, yeah, sure, whatever. But basically, no, it's not. It's not really worth it. Now, I would say I fit into this last group of people, but let's say you're getting a 2011, but you don't really know anything. So, for example, there's different hammers, safeties, grips, magwells, triggers, like, you know, different faces, different lengths of triggers. If there's all kinds of options for these things, all kinds. And if you don't know anything, like, this kind of makes sense. Like, you buy something like a box solution. To me, this is an open gun light. It's basically an open gun. So it's fun to shoot it. I can shoot it really aggressively. And I don't know that much about 2011s. So it's like, well, this is a 2011. I mean, it's not anything nuts. It's not super custom. It's not super interesting. It's, like I said, it's kind of unremarkable when you look at it. But if you don't know anything, that's kind of a good thing. Like, this is a good place to start. You can kind of shoot this for a while. And if I got to the point where I had real specific preferences about all these different parts on the gun, like, oh, I want this trigger and this safety and this and that other thing, this would make no sense to buy. It would make no sense because you could get the same feature set cheaper if you put it together yourself or if you know somebody, you know, that kind of thing. But, like, for me, my time is valuable. I don't Like, I just wanted, this is an interesting brand. It's an interesting gun. You know, let's get it. Let's get a 2011, get the XC, try it out. For me, it makes sense as a toy to play with, I guess. Definitely don't regret it. It's a super fun gun. Like, maybe the bottom line for a lot of people is I put up really, really good drill numbers with this. I can shoot it really effectively. It's fun to shoot it aggressively. What I don't like about the gun, contending with, like, the grip safety doesn't fit me perfect. I mean, it's close, but it's not quite perfect. If I wanted to go farther, I'd probably change something, be it the safety or the trigger. Something I would change something to get the gun a little bit more comfortable. It's close. It's not quite perfect. Maybe I just need to practice more. I don't know. But anyway, like, this gun is fun to me in that sense, to see how fast I can go. It's fun to shoot it on the edge of my ability. But what I wouldn't want to do is shoot it and just let it make me lazy. Because with all of the assists on the gun, like the comp, the light trigger, it'd be easy to get really lazy with the gun, which is not something I want. I want to take that gun and shoot it hyper aggressively. So, the XC, should you buy it? No. If you got some extra money and you want this thing for a specific purpose, like you think it'd just be really fun, or you think it's cool, you like the idea of having a toy like that, can you get it? Yeah, I mean, I guess. And as far as carrying these things on duty, I didn't think it would make sense when I bought it. I'd be like, that's kind of nuts. But I think it'll work. I think it would work if it's like the advanced user, the power user, that type of person. I think would do okay with it. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Questions, comments, you can put it down below.